Hi guys, so here we are at day 3 of factoring trinomials. And so the focus today is going to be on step 1. So I know that we've been leaving it out at the beginning, but this is also where all the work from last week comes back into play as well. So if we have problem number 1, 5x squared minus 15x minus 50. So you'll notice this time we have that 5 out in front. Well, that means that we need to factor out of 5 if we can. So will 5 go into 15? Yes. Will 5 go into 50? Yes. So that tells us that we can factor out of 5, and then that's going to leave us with 5 times what will give us 5x squared is x squared. 5 times what will give us negative 15x, and that's going to be negative 3x. And 5 times what will give me negative 50, and that's going to be negative 10. So now, if you'll notice, what's left in the black after we factor out the 5 is x squared minus 3x minus 10. And so that is a problem that we are familiar with, and that is actually how you work these problems. So we now have introduced step 1, and it is checked off. Well, if I can draw a check mark. Now we just go into step 2, rewrite in standard form. Well, it's already in standard form, so step 2 is checked. And now we can start our step 3 through 7, which we've been focused on the past couple days. So now we're going to go ahead and draw ourselves an X, draw ourselves the box. And now what I like to do first, now that we're doing all of this at once, is I like to go ahead and fill in my box, since I actually don't even have to do math for that. So the thing is we're not even going to be worried about this top one anymore now that we factored it out. So this top left box is always going to be ax squared, which in this case is x squared. And then C is still going to go in the bottom right, which is that negative 10. So I like to go ahead and fill that in. And the other thing that I can fill in is going to be my negative 3x, which is my bx. And we know the bx is the bottom of the x. So we can go ahead and put negative 3x there. And now we can kind of begin our problem. So with the top of the x, we know that is always going to be the first term, x squared, times c, which is the last term. So it's going to be x squared times negative 10. So we have negative 10x squared. And so now we need to figure out the factors of 10 that will add to give me negative 3. So if we go ahead, I'm going to draw this over here. Got our 10. We know we have 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. So right now you're saying, well, that's 10 and we need negative 10. So if we know that our C is negative and our B is negative, that means that our larger factor is going to have to be negative. So we'll have to draw a line for negative 10 and draw a negative for the 5. Now, 1 plus negative 10 is negative 9. Well, that's not what we're looking for. But we do have 2 and negative 5, which will add up to give us that negative 3 that we're looking for. So now we know that 2x and negative 5x are my two factors. Now 2x times negative 5x will multiply to give you negative 10x squared, and they will add to give you negative 3x. So now we're just going to put them into the box. So the 2x goes there. The negative 5x goes there. So now we just have to pull the GCF out of each column and each row in order to get our final answer. So we have x squared and negative 5x. And so if we're going to factor those out, the only thing they have in common, or their GCF, is x. And then the bottom row, we have 2x and negative 10. So will 2 go into 10? Yes, it will. Since it will go into it, you can factor out a 2. Now, we have the first column, x squared and 2x. The only thing they have in common is x. And then we have negative 5x and negative 10. We're going to go ahead and put us a negative since we know the leading term is negative. And then will the smaller number 5 go into the bigger number evenly 10? Yes, it will. So therefore, we're going to pull out a 5. Now, this is where it's going to be a little bit new, and you can't forget about it. So we know that we have factored out a 5. So we have to pull that 5 down, then add our new factors, which are x plus 2 and x minus 5. And so that is going to be our new final answer. So after we factor out that 5, guys, you just got to remember that you're not really getting rid of it. You're just making your standard form, your trinomial, a little bit easier to handle with the big X. So when we get our 2 new factors, x minus 5 and x plus 2, we got to also make sure that we remember to add the 5 to our final answer. So now, example 1. So once again, we have 5x squared, we have negative 80x, and we have 315. So we got to ask ourselves, once again, will 5 go into 80 and will it go into 315? Yes, it will. So you know you're going to factor out the 5. And so now 5 times what will give me x squared, and that's going to be x squared. 5 times what will give me negative 80x, and that's going to be negative 16x. And then 5 times what will give me positive 315, and that is going to be positive 63. So now we have went ahead and factored out our GCF, which is 5. We have our new standard form, so there's no reason to be worried about that anymore. So now we need to do the big X in the box. So go ahead and fill in the first term, which is x squared, into the top left. Then bottom right is always c, which is 63. And then now we can go ahead and also fill in the bottom of the x, which happens to be our bx, which is negative 16x. Now we can start doing some math in order to factor this whole thing out. So now, top is always x squared times c, which is 63. So we have 63x squared. Now we need to come up with our factors. Well, if we're going to come up with our factors of 63, we have 1 and 63. And I'm going to go ahead and encourage you, if you want to do this, you can plug it into Desmos. But just to save time, I'm not going to do that. So we have 1 and 63, 3 and 21, and then we also have 7 and 9. So now, these are our factors. So we got to pay attention at this point to our positives and negatives, both on the top of the x and the bottom of the x. So if our c is positive, but our b is negative, that means that both our factors are going to be negative. So now that we know both of them are negative, and the reason they're both negative is because if we're trying to get a positive number up top when we're multiplying, Okay, that means that a negative times a negative will give us a positive. So that's the only way we can get a positive up top and still add and get a negative down at the bottom. So our factors are going to be -7 and -9. So we have -7x and -9x. So we're going to go ahead and insert those there. And now we got to pull out the GCF. Now, if you want to, before you even do that, we could already go ahead, come down here, bring our 5 down, and then go ahead and draw us our 2 sets of parentheses so we don't forget about it. So now, let's factor these out. So x squared minus 9x, or x squared and -9x, the only thing they have in common is an x. Then we have -7x and 63. Well, will 7 go into 63? Yes, it will. So we're going to pull out a 7. But we also got to remember that negative. So it's going to be a -7. Now we have x squared and -7x. We can pull out an x. And then we have -9x and 63. So therefore, we can pull out a -9 since 9 will go into 63. So now our new factors are x minus 7 and x minus 9. And I'm going to post a second video also for you to watch, and it's going to be referring to Desmos and how you can check your answer. So I know we talked about this before with our calculators, and that is squirting blood in order to check your answer. So that's when one parabola goes in as blue, and then the second one will come in as red. So you can also do that on Desmos, and I will post a link just to remind you guys of that as well. But guys, just keep working. You guys are doing a great job. Please email me if you have any questions. This is a rather difficult topic, so please do not feel like if you have a question that you're the only one. So please feel free to reach out. I will make more videos if you would like, or if I can post some of my work. If you want that, please just let me know. But I hope you guys are having a great week, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.